Music Podcasts.
Hi guys, welcome to Learn Kenyan Law with Wanjiku. I'm your host, Wanjiku Mwangi, and for today's session we're going to be talking about surveyors and land surveying in Kenya. But before we delve deeper into it, I'll let my guest introduce herself. Karibu sana, Ashley.
Thank you so much, Wanjiku.
Yes, tell the people who you are, what you do.
I'm a training architect here in Kenya, as well as an upcoming poster with Wanjiku.
Thank you for coming again. It's been such a nice thing to always have you over here too. And in case, guys, you've not listened, we've done construction laws, we've also done building codes, and we've also now done siting and space for buildings. So today's session is about land surveying in Kenya, and I'd want us to start on discussing who is a land surveyor. How do we define a land surveyor?
A land surveyor is an expert or are experts in the collection, organization, presentation and delivery of spatial data for land information and management services. Yes, so it's basically a surveyor is basically the person who looks for information about a specific piece of land or pieces of land and arranges the data, spatial data in this reference, which is now the data of that space in the area, and comes up with every little detail that a developer might want to know when wanting to access a certain property.
Yeah. Okay, so I know here in Kenya we have some specific body that regulates the surveyors here in Kenya, which is the Land Surveyor Board. The Land Surveyors Board. Can we talk a little bit about them? Where do they derive their powers from? What are their functions? Yeah.
The Land Surveyors Board is a board that was established under the Survey Act Cap 299 of the laws in Kenya.
Yeah.
So it is a board which was established under an act
in
Kenya.
Yeah.
And the Land Surveyors Board regulates different aspects of surveying profession in Kenya. So they actually have a few tasks that they undertake for the land surveying process in Kenya to go smoothly.
Yeah.
So the three of them are professional practicing standards, licensing, and professional conduct. So those are the three different tasks, if so to speak, that the Land Surveyors Board undertakes.
Which is like their main points, like what they really do.
Yeah, that's what they really do, their main agenda. Yeah.
So how do they ensure that there is a professional practicing standard here in Kenya?
With that comes with some of the functions that the Land Surveyors Board now has.
Yeah.
So that all that is necessary.
Yeah.
So probably I could list some of the functions that they have
here
in Kenya. And the first one would be to conduct the examination of candidates for admission as licensed surveyors in accordance with the provisions of this act. So basically just that, to conduct examination for candidates when they are being admitted in the Land Surveyors Board. Yeah,
to become a full surveyor, meaning the test that you do, you conduct that examination. Okay.
Yeah. Then to grant licenses in accordance with the provisions of this act.
Yeah.
So as we all know, surveyors as well as other bodies like the architects or engineers do require licenses, so same as to surveyors. Then the third point, to keep a register of all licensed surveyors, which is just for the benefit, obviously, of the people.
Yeah.
When you're looking for surveyors, at least you know who are the credible surveyors, and you can access the Land Surveyors Board to get such information.
Yeah.
Then to take disciplinary proceedings against licensed surveyors. So obviously maybe from time to time there could be maybe some issues circulating surveyors here in Kenya.
Yeah.
So it is the duty of the Land Surveyors Board to be able to regulate some of this, to undertake some of these proceedings for the surveyors. Then another point is to hear and determine any dispute between any licensed surveyor and his client. which I know could be a challenge maybe with many developers
Yeah.
here in Nairobi or in Kenya,
Yeah.
where you and your surveyor are not really in tune with your whatever you're deciding upon. So it is also their work to manage some of those disputes.
Yeah, which is a good thing, I think.
Yeah, it is.
Because if they wouldn't do this, then it would need me to go to court, and it might be lengthy.
You need to get external sources and forces.
Yes.
Yeah, so the board at least comes in to manage some of that.
Yeah.
Then we have to hear and determine any dispute between the director and the licensed surveyor, which is, I think, SPA 2.
Yeah.
And now this is between now the director and the licensed surveyor.
Yeah.
The director, I'm thinking it's the director and the board.
Mm.
Then on all matters relating to cadastral surveys.
Yeah.
So in a piece of land.
Mm.
So to determine where are the boundary points, which is the lowest point of the land, which is the highest point of the land, such things. That is cadastral survey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that sounds fair, especially in ensuring that the field is, has a professional practicing standard, because unless you have these functions and rules and regulations, the land surveyors area would be a mayhem. By the time you're becoming a surveyor, you're already like
You're accredited.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we won't be having crooks out
Yes,
here,
yes.
if we can put it like that.
Yeah.
So I like the fact that we've spoken about the professional practicing standards that this land surveyors board does, because I feel like if we did not have this board, our surveyors would, our surveying industry would probably be mayhem. So our next point of conversation that I'd want us to talk about is the code of conduct, which of course is a very important aspect in whichever career one is in.
Yes.
So what's the specific kind of code of conduct that you think a surveyor should, behave?
There are quite a number of code of conducts a licensed surveyor should observe.
Mm-hmm.
But to begin with, we should all know that surveyors should always maintain high standard of conduct, which is like in any workplace or any job you have to begin with. You should always have a high standard of conduct when operating your business,
Yeah.
or your professional dwellings.
Yeah.
So that's the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And then also a licensed surveyor should not be connected in any way with any occupation or business that is incompatible with the professional status of a licensed surveyor. So if you're a licensed surveyor, be a licensed surveyor.
Yeah.
You should not be found undertaking in something else which is totally different and disregarding what you do as a surveyor.
True.
Not to say that you shouldn't maybe undertake something else in another career, but let it be known
Yes.
that you went through the right process, and now maybe you're a surveyor and an engineer, something like that.
Mm.
Then a surveyor should also at all times take responsibility for advice given or work done by clients. So if you're working with a certain client or developer and you have decided to maybe do things in a certain way because your client is the one who introduced it, make sure you take full responsibility of it.
Yeah.
So that it is known that this piece of land, when the various steps are being done, things are done in a certain way because the client communicated the following to the surveyor.
Yeah.
And you should own it and take full responsibility in case of any disputes in the future.
Yeah, and still in the same breath, that's where I feel like the aspect of confidentiality has to come in.
Yes.
Because of course you need to be confidential in regards with the kind of information that you have, probably from your client or from whatever it is that you might be having.
Yeah. In fact, that's also one of the code of conducts where the surveyor should be confidential about information like financial matters, business affairs, or methods or processes which the client has preferred to take.
Mm.
So all that is confidential between you and your client. Then another code of conduct would be a licensed surveyor should not solicit work or instructions and shall ensure any content published or distribution of any announcement or advertisement is approved by the board. So whatever information you're giving out to the public, it should be information that is legitimate and approved by the LSB, which is the Land Surveying Board.
Yeah.
So if you're making any press statements, maybe on the newspaper, it should be information that is approved by the board and is correct and is not false to the public.
Agreed. And that's why I was thinking that I've never seen an advertisement of someone saying that I am a land surveyor. So I offer these whatever services.
Yes.
It's like almost like lawyers. You see, lawyers, you never see someone advertising that I am a lawyer, get me like a television advert or something.
Yes.
People just know they are there.
Yeah, they're just there. They're somewhere.
Yeah, and you know where to get them.
Yeah, most of the time we see advertisements maybe for individual parties advertising about land.
Yeah.
But most definitely, even that advertisement being done, it is an advertisement that has gone through the board.
Yeah.
So it's not, as much as it's not directly linked to them, it's something that they are aware of.
Yeah, for sure.
Like that,
yeah.
Then also the license surveyor should observe any scales of fees that maybe are paid to the board. Maybe there's the annual fee that is done or made by licensed surveyors. So
yes.
you should observe that and pay where it's due.
True.
Yes. Then a licensed surveyor shall not accept financial or other reward for a particular service from more than one party, except with full knowledge of interested parties. So what this means is that when you're working as a surveyor, you know you're working with one client, as you should, or rather one client at a time. And if that is not the case, then you're meant to alert the other clients you have that if anything has happened, maybe you've gotten maybe a financial reward from one client, it should be known, so that it doesn't look like it was a bribe or something like that.
Of course, I even feel like this one specifically, we are talking about avoiding bribes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, to avoid it looking like a bribe, put it out there that you are given a financial reward by one of your clients.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with doing work differently.
True.
Yeah. Then we should also know that licensed surveyors should not accept instructions for any work that he is aware another licensed surveyor has already been retained, unless in collaboration with this other surveyor or with their consent. So if you're working on a certain project, let it be known that to the other surveyor that we may be working with you, so that they know that you two are sharing from one pool.
Yeah.
That it doesn't come about at a certain time and you realize that maybe you're not getting the fair share of the deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it also creates a better working environment between the two surveyors or three.
Yeah, of course, it definitely does create a good working environment.
Yes. So for code of conduct, I think that should be all.
Yeah.
That's a good number of code of conduct that we should know.
Yeah.
And we should look out for when interacting with licensed surveyors.
Yeah, great. But I'm wondering if you feel like the surveyor that you've interacted with has not behaved properly.
Yes.
Is there an official place where you can report?
Yes, that is why there was the pointer I had made earlier on, where the licensed board of surveyors takes disciplinary proceedings against licensed surveyors, or they also hear and determine any disputes between surveyors and the client. So we have the land surveying board to help with such matters.
Okay, that sounds important. So the next thing that I'd want us to talk about is what's the process of land surveying, especially here in Kenya. When I want to call a surveyor, what am I expecting this person to be doing?
Yeah. So the first pointer when doing land surveying in Kenya would be obtaining existing deeds, title deeds, and property information. So to explain this a little bit, the start of a new land development project requires a base plan with the following existing conditions, which include property boundary lines, the land parcel, as we've talked about in previous discussions.
Yeah.
The boundary line of adjoining properties, any existing agreement and easement document that could impact proposed development. So those are some of the conditions you need to know when obtaining existing pieces of land.
Yes.
Yeah. Then secondly, we should prepare a base boundary plan, and this is prepared using a software known as CAD, which is computer aided design, which is a software known by architects as well as surveyors. And on this boundary plan, it includes boundary lines with the distances,
Okay.
boundary line orientation, like is it facing towards the north, is it facing towards the east, such information. Parcel areas, which is basically the area of the land, right-of-way areas, and such likes. Yes. Then third, we have doing a field survey,
Yes.
which is absolutely important because when you are obtaining a piece of land, there's no way you will obtain a piece of land without seeing it face
Yes.
to face.
Yeah, of
So you
course.
should definitely do a field survey to ascertain the piece of land you're looking for is actually
There.
existing.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
Yes. Then after that, you prepare the existing condition plans. And existing condition plans for your site include the existing property boundaries and topography, including contours, showing the elevation differences within the site. So contours are, I feel like people would know contours if you did geography in high
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
Which is, contours are the lines on a piece of map which show which areas are hilly, which areas are flat, which
Yeah.
areas are slightly slopy. So when the contours are drawn close to each other, several lines are drawn close to each other, you know that area is steep or is
Yes.
hilly.
Yeah.
If the contours are sparsely populated, maybe there's one contour here, another one maybe 10 meters away, then you know the area is slopy, slightly slopy, or nearly flat. Yeah, so you should, such existing plans are also maybe done by the architect or the surveyor. Yeah. Then we also resolve any boundary issues, like how we were saying, when you're putting up a boundary wall and maybe you've put up towards maybe the piece of land for your neighbor,
Yeah.
and you can resolve some of those issues so that you know where exactly your land begins and ends.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we have obtaining any other required information. And this information, extra information, would include items such as additional topography data for the site and the location of individual trees. And this is mostly important for like the architects, where you need to be presented a plan by the surveyor where we are able to see where there are trees in the area, because it helps the designer know which trees they can retain and which
Yeah.
trees they can take down. Because there are some trees maybe that have been existing for 50 years,
Yeah.
and the owner of the property intends to retain them, so you know how to design around
Yeah.
such.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we have to also prepare the construction stakeout survey, which is more or less what we had mentioned before, and it involves surveying and marking the stakes of various parts of the proposed project, and that is constructed correctly, so that it's constructed correctly. So when you're making out surveying, that's where when we go put those like big pieces of stone to mark maybe where the building is
Yeah.
going to be planned out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this could include building corners, edging of paving, and maybe where we're going to put the water management, like maybe the sewerage and all that.
Okay.
Yeah. Then the surveyor also prepares something called the as-built survey. As is like AS-built survey. So this is to show what was constructed. This is something that could be required by a municipality after the construction of a project to compare to the approved design plans. So if a significant difference is found between the as-built plan and the design plan, as-built is meaning maybe what was built before or what was done before, in comparison to the design plans, which are now the current, the construction contractor might have to go back to the site to correct the issue. And once the issue has been fixed, the surveyor would most likely have to do a survey of the corrected area again to be sure what is in the as-built plan matches with the design plan.
Okay.
To prevent any issues in the future with regards to design.
That is really interesting. You know, me, I just thought surveyors just come, put some markers, and then they go home, and then their work is done. It's interesting to see that they do all these things. And this conversation makes us understand, why does a surveyor ask for this amount of money? You know, sometimes a surveyor is asking for, like, I don't even want to mention the amount because I wouldn't want it to be like ranged as the base salary. But a surveyor might ask for payment, and you're like, oh my, you are just here for hours, you know.
Looking through my glass.
Seeming as if you're doing nothing. But indeed, they're really doing a lot. And of course, as you've told us, it also affects the kind of design plan that your architect is going to come up with, or rather, which kind of construction you're also going to do. And another important thing is the resolving of the boundary issues. You know, there's nothing bad like being in bad terms with your neighbor because of the boundary.
And you will live together
for a very long time. And even if it's not specifically you, maybe the child of that neighbor and such things. And Ashley, if you could just now point us, I feel like we've talked about land a lot. We've talked about the surveyors, we've talked about the building codes, we've talked about siting, and we've also talked about the National Construction Authority. Just like in a nutshell, when I want to probably buy land here in Kenya, what are the things that you feel like I should probably check out for?
So there are a few steps to follow when buying land here in Kenya. So the first one would be to do a physical site visit to the property, to ensure it really exists, because you know how people have been conned out here.
A lot of people,
especially even people. Let's say you moved abroad, and you want to buy a piece of land here in Kenya. So you send one of your relatives. They send you very beautiful photos, but they have sourced them from the internet. And you believe it, and you pay for your land. All along, your land has not been in existence.
Unfortunately,
so you should always do a physical visit to ascertain your land is there. So as you're doing your site visits, some of the questions that you should ask are like, who are the original owners of the land, and what is the reason for selling? Because some people could be disposing land because they know something about this land and they don't want to say.
True.
So you should always disclose, where am I selling this piece of land? So that the future owners can know. Then how long will it take to process title deeds? Because you know everybody's working with a time frame.
True.
The developer is working with a time frame of when to start his construction. The architect is working with a time frame on when to prepare plans. Like it's a ripple effect.
It's a chain,
So you should always know such information, like how long will it take to get my title deeds? Then thirdly, what is the mode of refund in case one changes their mind after paying a deposit?
That's a tricky part.
That's a tricky part because a lot of people are denied refund.
Unfortunately.
So you pay for a piece of land and you're not satisfied with it, and you think twice about it.
You change your mind.
By the time you thought twice about it, your seller went, your broker
with the deposit
out of the window. So you should always have at least a mode of refund.
True.
What are the zoning restrictions in the area? Are we allowed to construct high-rise? Or is it just story buildings? Then are there any portions of the land designated as wetlands? And that is very important because where you're building where the land is dry and where you have wetlands, the construction process is going to be very different. Because where the land is dry, the process is the same. How you're going to do the foundation is the same. But where it's riparian or wet, you know, you're going to put columns of a stronger hold. Or you're going to do foundation of a stronger hold. Or you're going to have to do columns above land and you're building starting at a certain level of distance above height. So that is important to know, to avoid maybe you're building having weak points, which leads to your building maybe even in the future coming down. Then what is the type of soil and suitability for farming and construction? So there are certain types of soil which are better for construction and others which are better for irrigation. So it's good to let your current owner know, so that he knows in case maybe he needs to transport soil to make to increase stability of the piece of land. Such factors.
That sounds interesting. I didn't know about the soil factor actually. I thought any soil just suffices for you to construct.
Actually, is it like, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think like black cotton soil is not good for construction.
Is it good for farming?
Maybe
something else, but not construction.
But not construction, because it tends to absorb. So if you find such soil, then you know here construction will be a bit of a hassle.
True.
Then we have also doing proper due diligence. Due diligence is basically digging deeper to understand property issues that could be a cause of conflict in the future. And this includes establishing the identity of the original and current owners, the actual size of the land, and whether or not the paperwork is in order. So you should always do your due diligence, so that you know, who am I buying this land from? Is it a crook?
Yes.
Or is it a guy who bought land illegally?
Yes.
Or it's just somebody who is just trying to sell this land to maybe create extra income for himself?
Or is it someone who has buried people down there illegally? You know, we've had issues of people killing their wives and burying them there without telling you. And that person is still being looked for.
Our culture here in Kenya, we can buy land. I mean, we can have a piece of land, and culturally, you bury your people
there.
So it's not an issue, but if it is where you are built, and maybe it could be an issue. Because I don't know, there's a certain tribe in Kenya, I don't want to mention it in case I'm wrong. But I hear they would bury somebody at the doorstep.
Can you imagine? I've also heard that, and I'm always like, for me that sounds so weird, but of course we have diversity and we appreciate diversity, but I'm just like, what is the reasoning behind that, first of all?
I also don't know. I've never quite understood what the reasoning is, but that's their culture. So when you're selling off a piece of land, maybe you should let people know that
you've buried people.
And you know that's why, like in developed countries, they're not allowed to bury people in their homes.
Actually I advocate for that. Again, it loses value. Even when you're trying to sell it, it's just but then again we have failed because our government has not really provided for a big space for us to say this is a burials. We're always having issues at Langata. Mara, you hear your person is not there. I don't know, people have stolen coffin. It's just
and you know, also, as much as we're allowed to bury people in our homes, most people, as they should be, bury like away. Like maybe if you have a farm near your house, you bury there at the farm. You don't bury here where the house is, you know.
At the doorstep.
Not at the doorstep, surely. In this 2022. I don't think it's a must to bury at the doorstep. So at least when you're selling a piece of land, the current owner knows that there's a graveyard somewhere it's not here in your vicinity per se.
And you know, the interesting thing is, I think like 3 days ago, I was reading in a newspaper that a wife who's been missing for like 3 years was found buried, I don't know, under a bathtub or what.
What?
Yes, and the lady has been missing. The husband has been saying, I don't know where. She just woke up one day and left. So that's why I feel like even disclosing, or even if you've bought that land, you just should be very vigilant to ensure, you know, someone is not buried here, and if they are buried, such things, because these are things that happen.
And there are people who are sensitive to such things.
Yeah, of course.
About death.
Yeah, spirits are lurking around.
Some ghost is haunting.
Especially if they were murdered,
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
True. Yes. Then the last point in our discussion would be to do a title research of the property, and this is done by majorly going to the Ministry of Lands and looking up your property and seeing maybe the land number and what was built before and the size of the land and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people have been conned through this, and I normally say, even when you're conducting a land search, when you want to buy property, you don't have to go with the person who is selling that land together with that person in that Ministry of Land to do the search. Just walk there alone, pay the necessary fee that you're supposed to pay, and then do the search. Because when you walk with this person who is selling this property to you, this person might know someone who is inside who's going to do a forgery of the search certificate.
For their own,
yeah,
their own.
Then you lose millions.
Yeah, and also it's important to also have a lawyer.
Yeah.
In discussion.
Thank you. I always say that. Yeah. From the beginning.
A land lawyer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that as you're doing all this process of due diligence and all that, they can help you do it.
True. Yeah.
They obviously have access to all this information.
Yeah.
Yeah. So have a lawyer in case of anything. And so that also when you're doing the transactions of money and all that, your money is not going to waste.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have the proper information of what you're buying.
Yeah, and sometimes people think that having a lawyer now is adding another expense. But I normally say better safe than sorry.
Better safe than sorry.
You will buy that land for 5 million, lose that 5 million, go and try constructing that land. You'll be sued for trespass. And now you need...
expensive in the long run.
You even lose... Plus, you're losing your peace. There's nothing bad like even losing your peace and being stressed about something. You've lost 5 million somewhere. Where do you start?
You can't sleep.
You can't. Maybe it was a loan that you have to pay for the next 5 years. Then it's a sad situation.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate the fact that you've talked about the steps you should follow when you want to buy land here in Kenya. Yeah. It's really good information. And I don't know, do you have anything else that you can wrap up? Your 2 pointers as we close.
Probably what I can say is that we are still a growing nation, and we are still a developing nation.
Yeah.
So as we continue construction in the future as individuals or as companies, let's look forward to some of these. Let's look into some of these regulations that are created in our country and try to follow them and do your due diligence when you're constructing the right ways, buy land in the right ways to avoid being conned. Yeah. It's also good information to give to the public because I'm sure not a lot of people know these steps to even follow. Yeah. Or like codes of conduct by licensed surveyors. So it's good to know, to have this information, maybe not all of it, but some of it, so that it can help you in the future and you're able to maybe identify some red flags and you remember that I listened to a certain podcast and I discovered that this and this and this. Yeah.
And again, information is power.
Information is power, truly. Yes.
So again, thank you so much, Ashley, for enlightening us about all these different things. And I feel like both I have been learning as much as my listeners have also been learning. Yeah. And again, as you've said, information is power, and you should always be ready to get it if it's accessible, because this is not rocket science. This is just something that you can hear, listen, understand, and then now when you invite a professional person to come and do it, you even appreciate their work and even the effort they've put in to get to wherever it is they have career-wise.
And actually, Wanjiku, this is good information that you're giving to the public, because as much as it's information that you would find on the internet. Yeah. It's not like you will wake up and say, what are the functions of a land?
Yeah.
So at least you're going out of your way to educate the people and to create awareness so that they can have this information without having to maybe go through untrusted sources.
True. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's going to be it, guys. In case you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. And in case there are any topics you'd want us to talk about, I'd also appreciate that. So listen to us next time, but for today, that's going to be it. Bye.
Music Podcasts, the home of podcasts in Kenya.